Rachel, great to see you again.
Lovely to be here.
Now, been thinking a bit about catching up. Obviously, we've worked now together for years on the transformation at BT and also prior to that at Ace Insurance. Maybe just for the listeners, give us a little bit of a heads up about the role that you're in at the moment at BT.
So I have the privilege of leading around 14,500 technologists to develop great products and services and colleague and customer experiences for all of the BT brands and for all of our B2C, B2B, communication provider and retail businesses.
We just jumped into the time machine and went back 10 years and you considered what IT organisations were like in global businesses 10 years ago. What would be strikingly different about then from today?
I think it's the role that IT and technology is playing in the business. I think 10 years ago it was very much a cost centre, it was quite transactional, it was a support function. Now it often is the business, and it's certainly the technology strategy is driving the business strategy far more than ever before. I think the way we think about technology now is also less transactional. We're thinking more about the holistic impact on society, on community, on the environment, on people, just as much as we are deploying new capability into an organisation.
I've noticed over that time in my career a shift from very big bang IT investments. They still happen, but there is an inclination to do much more lean startup type work where we incrementally wayfind and deliver value. How is transformation delivered these days by comparison to then?
Yeah, you're right. There's been a massive shift. We used to embark on 5 to 7 year generational lurches in technology that would take 5 to 7 years to complete if they ever did. It would take tens to hundreds of millions of budget. And it was a bit like painting the fourth bridge. By the time you'd finish, you had to start again. Your requirements are completely shifted in the time it took you to deploy. And organisations have got tired of that failure rate in their organisation and just the slow pace at which new capabilities were being delivered into the organisation. So now it is much that the lean startup model. It is all about doing the design thinking to deeply understand your customer needs and pain points, designing your organisation and operating model and capabilities around that, and prototyping, co-creating the new version of whatever it is you're transforming quickly, validating it, deploying it in an area and then scaling from there out once you've proved it, but doing it in a way that is cloud first and digitally native so that you can scale incredibly rapidly, and that's been a massive shift.
Yeah, and right now with everything that's going on around the world, everybody's going to digital first, digital twin strategies. You've pointed to a number of different tools in the toolkit that are becoming the tools of transformation. And even the word transformation, I'm finding with certain clients that there's a shift towards modernisation as being the word that people are adopting because it's not quite as loaded as transformation. What do you see as the principal toolkits in your kit bag to make transformation happen?
The most powerful tool for me is design thinking. And the reason for that is it helps your technology teams become very human-centered and very customer-centric. So it gets them out there doing ethnographic and observational research, deeply understanding the journeys and experience of the people they're creating solutions for. And all too often, technologists forget that step. I think the other two key methods are Agile and DevOps. And I think when you bring the three together, you can really create something extremely powerful because with design thinking, you make sure you design the right thing. With Agile and DevOps, you're delivering it in the right way. And bringing those two things together delivers some extraordinary outcomes.
I would add to that there's been this journey that I've been participating in, I guess, from the beginning of our business, almost 20 years ago. The architectural development and maturity in businesses has come a long way. And I noticed that way back when we had sort of this idea of enterprise architecture, which was seen as ivory tower, but the emergence of solution architecture as a way to understand how all the pieces of the technology jigsaw will fit together to meet a set of business requirements. And over time, there's been this sort of developing convergence between the bottom-up and top-down views of architecture.
I think what we've also seen is that enterprise architecture grew out of technical architecture, largely sort of infrastructure and application architecture. I think what we're now seeing is enterprise architecture starting with business architecture, and actually even beyond that, business design. And then that's informing what the technical architecture needs to be, whereas before it was more this is the technical architecture, how would the business then use it? The service mode has completely flipped in the new world.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned the human-centered design part of that as well. So what we've seen is this journey from outside in terms of what does the customer need, the ethnographic research, the design thinking, and bringing those skills inside the organisation. Seen the growth of the bottom up of technical and solution architecture into a more business architecture way of operating. We've seen a shift from big bang to more agile, lean startup. And we've also seen this need to really anchor decisions on clear references within the business, reflect the strategy and the ambition of the business in a much more direct and tangible way.
Yeah, I mean, all of our conversations now around business cases is in service of value and outcomes and speed to those value and outcomes. That's very different to the way we used to construct business cases 10 years ago. It was all about cost takeout, wasn't it?
And let's talk about value and value streams, because we're in the middle of actually designing a new bank at the moment. And part of the discussion is about, well, what does a new bank look like? Do you have a core platform that can plug in all the fintech services and offerings in an effective way and create essentially a new common core? Or do you create a new platform that creates and delivers all of those new capabilities and services? How do you see things developing in enterprise and specifically in telco?
Yeah, we have the same shift in telco right now. You know, our system stack was very much predicated on the network core, an operating systems layer that would orchestrate and mediate those network services, and then a business service layer which interacted with your customers and various stakeholders and partners. And they were very discrete layers. In fact, you usually had different parts of your organization in silos, transforming and evolving those three layers. Now it's much more of how do we create an end-to-end service all the way through the stack, right through to software-defined network components to create great experiences for customers. And even those experiences now are created from bundles across our products and services. So we're having to decomponentize previous products and services like broadband, like TV and sport, like a mobile connection, and actually look at what are the individual characteristics you'd want to bundle together to transform an organisation or individual's ability to communicate, connect, and collaborate.
It makes me think of the ecosystem when we sort of go back up to sort of that whole business view of how these businesses are evolving. We're seeing sort of best of breed services being readily sort of engageable and plug and play. And this is sort of the vision and the ambition for creating a highly agile, just-in-time readiness to deliver certain value propositions to different customers. And I'd imagine if you're a CEO in an organisation, you're thinking, wow, this is what's going on at the vanguard of technology and business. You know, what do I need to understand to be able to play in this space? Do I just need a good advisor? Do I need a good architect? Do I need a good CIO? Or is there another skill set? Or should I go back to school and learn something? I mean, what's your advice to a CEO to be able to grasp those issues?
It's all of those things, but I think my main advice would be pull the right new ecosystem of advisors around yourself. You know, every industry, every organization right now is finding itself in the middle of a brand new ecosystem or value chain that didn't exist 10 years ago. So look outside your traditional partners, your traditional industry stakeholders, and pull that blanket of new advisors around you that can bring you innovation at pace, can bring you and harvest you best practices from other industries and the industries you serve, but it can also help you transform culture and mindset so that you drive that human centricity, that in service of mindset throughout your organization, and make sure you're delivering the right things. And then what we're finding at BT is that with the newest software defined services, we don't yet know what our customers will want to do with them. So SD-WAN is a classic example, or 5G, where we're going to actually have to innovate with some early trial customers to define the services we build and deploy at scale to the rest of our customers, to really validate the use cases, the business cases, and the outcomes. And that's a very different proposition for a CEO, because they're used to building something internally, launching it, and having a market to work with. They're now going to have to go to the market first to do the research and the design, to then build the product, to then cycle back out again. And that's a whole, you're going to have to change your entire operating model to be able to support that. So go and look at industries that already do that well.
And talking about design research, in our project with you at BT, a big part of this has been around co-design and the ethos that sits underneath that, which is about being in service of each other. Because we all believe that a business is essentially made up of people who are in service of each other. A good business, that's the best way to operate. And it's really easy to overlook, but it shouldn't be understated, the importance of culture and how we cultivate the right culture for a modern enterprise. Can you talk to us a little bit about your experiences there?
Yeah, I mean, for me, co-design was probably the most important characteristic of the transformation journey we established. And the reason I chose design thinking and co-design specifically was because I inherited an organisation that had become very disconnected from its customer. You know, I'd go and do floor walks in our engineering centre in Bangalore and just ask an engineer, who are you building this for? And they would have no clue. They were just following a requirement spec, and that just crushed my heart. So they sort of got to a point where they didn't even know how to describe a customer, and they thought a customer was just one of our external customers and didn't see our internal colleagues and stakeholders as customers either. So to reset that and to build that in service of mindset, we established a principle that we would design everything using co-design, and that co-design would happen with our actual customers and users of the products or service we were designing, but also the team that would design, deliver and support that service in life as well. And by doing that, you know, we've had some phenomenal outcomes. Our average NPS for any IT service is plus 55, and that's gone up from minus 28. So we've got a huge swing. Our highest is plus 81, which is extraordinary, world beating. Our employee engagement scores have gone up 7 points into the early 80%. That's extraordinary. But the adoption of every single service has happened so fast. One of our first services was to scan open source libraries that our teams are downloading. We got 65% of our team using that tool within 6 months. Because we co-designed the service wrap, all the adoption and comms and engagement and the reason for using this service was designed with them and for them. And then, you know, adoption just flows. It's effortless. We took 38%, about 295 million, out of our cost base on an annualized basis. And although, you know, cost transformation was a big part of our transformation journey, we never actually really talked about it with our team. We talked about creating the right service, the right experience, investing in their skills, eliminating dull, manual, wasteful work, being disciplined around quality and outcomes. And that saving sort of fell out of the back end of the process. So it feels great for our team, it feels great for our customers, but there is an enormous financial benefit to approaching transformation this way.
That's huge. And I'm seeing this two-sided case for transformational modernisation everywhere. You know, reduce cost, improve outcomes and experience. And, you know, you don't do one or the other in many cases. And the getting back to the point around culture, what was memorable for me about charting the course with you on this was that seeing the shift and the different eras, if you like, of the change, the uncertainty at the beginning, and
massive skepticism.
Yeah, skepticism and resistance, and all natural human responses to here's another bloody transformation.
So much change fatigue. Yeah.
So much change fatigue. But what was really interesting about this was that, and I strongly believe that this is at least 50% about leadership. It is about being willing to go out on a limb and walk the talk and actually show people what it takes to transform the organisation. And one of the things that you guys did brilliantly was literally put on the costumes of the story of Da Vinci.
Yeah, we dressed up.
You had the tents and the rucksacks and the whole thing.
Sherpa outfits and all sorts.
And you adopted the expedition theme, and this gave the organisation something to tune into, to understand that this wasn't going to be easy. This is climbing the mountain. There's going to be altitude sickness. There's going to be grizzlies. There's going to be challenges, but there's also going to be moments of gain, and there's going to be forward parties, and there's going to be new things. We're going to discover things. So that sort of embodiment of the journey, I think, was really quite remarkable and just demonstrated amazing leadership. How have you found that process? What have you learnt from that?
I've learned that if you as a leadership team are not prepared to put about 40% of your time and your effort relentlessly focused on culture and mindset, leadership style and behaviours, don't even start the journey, because it takes that much. We spent 6 months as a leadership team and a senior management team in base camp, just equipping ourselves with understanding what servant leadership meant, what growth mindset meant, what business capability enterprise architecture was, how to do design thinking really well and drive that co-creation, creating our inspiring vision and narrative to bring the 14,500 people with us along the journey, and testing it all with our internal customers, just that framing to make sure that if we said what we were going to deliver, that would meet their needs. And then, every moment from then, we've had to be extremely consistent and authentic in the way we show up. The incidental conversations we have around the water cooler, the comms we send out, every training, every group gathering, we decided would be ultimately inclusive, would be experiential, would have storytelling at its core, and would be creative and fun. And if things didn't meet that criteria, they didn't happen. And today we still follow that. We always challenge ourselves. Is this fun enough? Is it inspiring enough? Or is it just more sort of dread and doom that we're going to push through the organisation? We set a very, very high bar, and we continue to invest in our people, in developing our people leaders to be able to role model the same way we've learnt as the senior leaders in the organisation over the last 3 years. So my biggest learning is the amount of effort you personally, as the leader of the organisation, have to put in. Never underestimate that. It's going to take a huge amount of energy. You're going to have to call yourself to account. Build a council of people around you who can give you feedback in the moment of where you're not quite meeting that, because people will spot the chinks. They'll spot the gaps in your belief and your authenticity, and then you can't let that happen.
Yeah, that was a remarkable experience to work with you on that journey, and I think that it's always inspiring to connect with you because you do have this optimistic outlook, and you do have this great personal style and natural leadership, and I think your insights today have been absolutely fabulous, and I really thank you for the time you spent with us.
That's been a great conversation. Thank you, guys.